Northern Metropolis Hongshouqiu residents urge government to provide more basic facilities. Donald Trump personally voices China trip highlights video. And Ebola hits hard in 2 African countries. Good evening and welcome to TVB News. In recent years, high-density private housing have filled the landscape of Hongshouqiu, one of the most developed sites in the Northern Metropolis planning area. Some local residents say they were attracted by the comparatively affordable units in the area, but also noted the shortage of facilities. This as the former director of planning, Linkar Khan, believes the Northern Metropolis will not become a copy of the Tin Shui Wai residential neighborhood.
Local resident Joe, who settled in Hongshouqiu last year, gets off from work in Laofaoshan on a daily basis. He then travels to Tin Shui Wai via his company shuttle, before switching to a bus that takes him to the wet markets of Yunlong. After completing his purchases, he would take the MTR's light rail to return home in Hongshouqiu. Despite the entire journey taking at least an hour, he refuses to buy groceries in the Northern Metropolis residential area. Joe says options are extremely limited in Hongshouqiu's wet market, with only one stall available for each type of product, adding that prices are at least 10 to 20% higher than that of Yunlong. Having moved as a family of 3 to the area for more than half a year, Joe says he is pleased with his 400-square-foot apartment, but he would have to make do with the lack of facilities in the neighborhood. It would take more than 10 minutes for him and other residents just to get in the vicinity of a football pitch or basketball court, with no other facilities available at his housing estate besides 1 or 2 supermarkets. He notes his family prefers to travel to the mainland during the holidays owing to the shortage of options. Set to be completed in 2030, the Hongshouqiu MTR station will be located between Tin Shui Wai and Siuhang stations, which is still 20 minutes by walking distance from Joe's residence. This as a growing number of private housing estates have been built near the Hongshouqiu light rail station over the past few years. Sharing his thoughts on why he decided to move to the newly developed area, Joe says he didn't think too much and wanted to buy a flat priced at around $4 million. Meanwhile, former director of planning Linkar Khan reassures residents that the Northern Metropolis will not experience the same challenges of Tin Shui Wai, which initially suffered from a lack of public transport to the city center. He emphasizes there are already several operational MTR stations near Hongshouqiu and highlights the government's earlier address about its strategy to develop the planning area's infrastructure. Authorities predict the entire Northern Metropolis site could generate over 500,000 new jobs, with government offices set to be completed at both Kutong and Hongshouqiu by 2033.
Soon to be chairman of Hongshouqiu Industry Park's board of directors, Jeffrey Lam says many enterprises show interest in investing in the Northern Metropolis. Hongshouqiu Industry Park is a prominent part of the mega project by the border. Mo Sinai reports.
To accelerate the industry development in the Northern Metropolis, the government has established 3 companies and injected a $10 billion fund to each of them. Authorities has also set up a board of directors in Hongshouqiu Industry Park, which will take effect from June 1st. Speaking on a TVB program, the soon-to-be board chairman Jeffrey Lam says that their primary work is to recruit senior management staff for the 23-hectare industry park, such as the chief executive. Lam says one idea is to establish a one-stop service center within the park to help enterprises set up bank accounts, complete business registration, and even arrange schools for the children of those doing business there. The executive councillor reveals that many mainland and overseas enterprises have contacted him about investing in the park, including an American concern expressing hope to build a big data center. But Lam says fewer inquiries come from the property sector. Asked if the $10 billion are sufficient for enacting the plans, Lam says it is difficult to make a prediction on that, adding that bond issuance could be a method in the future if the park's development goes well. Moments 9, TVB News.
The U.S. White House has released highlight videos of President Donald Trump's recent visit to China. Narrated by Trump himself, The two videos look back at the history of relations between the United States and China. The first video shows U.S. President Donald Trump attending a state banquet hosted by President Xi Jinping.
This bond of commerce and respect that stretches back 250 years is the foundation for a future that benefits both of our nations. The American and Chinese people share much in common. We value hard work, we value courage and achievement, we love our families, and we love our countries.
Another video from the White House shows the two leaders visiting the Temple of Heaven together, admiring the ancient architectural design. During their meeting, the heads of state agreed to establish a constructive, strategic, stable relationship between China and the U.S. as the new positioning for bilateral relations. Two people were killed and others wounded after an Israeli airstrike hit a vehicle in Gaza City on Saturday evening, according to local health officials. This comes as Hamas confirmed Israel al-Haddad, commander-in-chief of its armed wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades, was killed in an Israeli airstrike on Friday. Daniel Rall tells us more.
Two people were killed and others wounded after an Israeli airstrike hit a vehicle in Gaza City on Saturday evening, according to local health officials. The Israeli military said it targeted a Hamas terrorist without providing further details. Gaza's civil defense, which operates under the Hamas-run government, said it recovered the bodies from the wrecked car. The dead were taken to a morgue at Shifa Hospital, where grieving relatives were seen kneeling on the ground and hugging each other. It comes as Israel's military said it killed the leader of Hamas's military wing in Gaza on Friday. Israeli officials said Israel al-Haddad was one of the last surviving architects of the attacks that triggered the war in late 2023. Hamas later confirmed the death. Mourners in the Gaza Strip held a funeral procession for al-Haddad on Saturday. His body was brought wrapped in Palestinian and Hamas flags to a mosque in Gaza City for prayers before being taken away for burial. The ceasefire between Israel and Hamas remains fragile, and the top diplomat overseeing it says it has stalled because of the deadlock over disarming Hamas. Meanwhile, hundreds of Israeli demonstrators attended an anti-government rally in Tel Aviv. The protesters said they were there to make sure elections are being held on time at the legal time they're required to be held. On Wednesday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu submitted a bill to dissolve parliament, taking a preliminary step towards holding new elections later this year. Netanyahu's coalition is near the end of its four-year term and must hold new elections by the end of October. Dan Rall, TV News.
World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has declared the Ebola disease outbreak in the Democratic Republic of the Congo and neighboring Uganda a public health emergency of international concern. This after it caused more than 300 suspected cases and 88 deaths. Here's Dan Rall again.
The World Health Organization said the outbreak does not meet the criteria of a pandemic emergency like the COVID-19 pandemic and advised against the closure of international borders. The WHO said a laboratory-confirmed case has also been reported in the Democratic Republic of the Congo's capital, Kinshasa, which is about 1,000 kilometers from the outbreak's epicenter in the eastern province of Ituri. This suggests a possible wider spread. It said the patient had visited Ituri and that other suspected cases have also been reported in North Kivu province, which is one of the DR Congo's most populous and borders Ituri. The WHO said the DR Congo accounts for all except 2 of the cases, both of which were reported in Uganda. DR Congo Health Minister Roger Kamba Malamba said the outbreak intensified after the body of an infected person was returned to the densely populated mining area of Mungwalu for burial rites. Dr. Jean Kaseya, Director General of the Africa CDC, also said this was the likely cause of the outbreak.
From official record, samples were taken when the person passed on because the person was bleeding, and we knew that at that moment it was already suspected case of Ebola. Now, this body was brought back to DRC for funerals. I don't have any record of protective measures that people they had when the body was brought back to DRC.
Kaseya said the Africa CDC was in talks with armed groups to secure humanitarian access to areas affected by the outbreak. Health authorities say the current outbreak, first confirmed on Friday, is caused by the Bundibugyo virus, a rare variant of the Ebola disease that has no approved therapeutics or vaccines. Although more than 20 Ebola outbreaks have taken place in DR Congo and Uganda, this is only the 3rd time the Bundibugyo virus has been detected. The WHO's emergency declaration is meant to spur donor agencies and countries into action. However, the global response to previous declarations has been mixed. In 2024, when the WHO declared Mpox outbreaks in the DR Congo and elsewhere in Africa a global emergency, experts at the time said it did little to get supplies like diagnostic tests, medicines and vaccines to affected countries quickly. Dan Arel, TV News.
And still ahead, two rivaling protests converge in middle of London. Police arrest suspect in connection with a 1999 murder case. And performers rehearse for forthcoming Cheung Chau festivities. Welcome back. Tens of thousands of people marched through central London in two separate protests, one against high levels of immigration and another in support of Palestinians. UK police deployed around 4,000 officers in what they called their biggest public order operation in years. By mid-afternoon on Saturday, police said they had made 31 arrests for a range of offenses and described both protests as largely without significant incident. The anti-immigration march is organized by right-wing activist known as Tommy Robinson, who was convicted in the past for assault, stalking, and other offenses. The pro-Palestinian march also has detractors who feel that such protests would intimidate Jewish people, especially after recent racist attacks in London and elsewhere. Police arrested a man on suspicion of connecting to a newspaper vendor murder case back in 1999. The man will be charged with the count of murder and will appear at the Kowloon City Magistrates Courts on Monday. Sources say the man was imprisoned for other offenses on the mainland and was released recently. Most Night reports.
Police brought the 54-year-old suspect, surnamed Lin, to Kowloon West Regional Headquarters on Sunday morning. On September 22, 1999, three masked men attacked a 40-year-old newspaper vendor, Ho Wai Ha, with chop knives in Shan Shui Po. Ho died with excessive blood loss while the assailants got in a car and fled the scene. Between 2005 and 2010, the police arrested and prosecuted 6 individuals related to the murder. 5 were convicted of murder and received life sentences, whereas the 6th person was sent behind bars for 12 years for manslaughter. The police suspect the 54-year-old man was a 3 hitman's recruiter and was also responsible for arranging a car for the trio to arrive at and flee the crime scene. Speaking to the media, the police say the man was arrested in Shenzhen and was handed over to them by the local authorities at the Shenzhen Bay control point on Saturday.
All the evidence that are available that we secure or get in Hong Kong.
The superintendent mentions that authorities are looking for another wanted person in relation to the murder. Asked if the police have any clues of the person's whereabouts, Gar says the force is working on it. Most Night, TVB News.
Cambodia is working to boost its business environment through a stronger government crackdown on telecom fraud. This as the country also plans to organize investment delegations to bring Hong Kong businesses to Cambodia for site visits. Jacqueline with the story.
Wat, a 1,000-year-old temple complex and the largest religious monument in the world, is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. Yet even during peak season, visitor numbers remain sparse throughout the day. Cambodia's tourism industry has been overshadowed by scam cases in recent years, with foreign visitor numbers failing to recover after the pandemic. Lu Meng, who operates hotels in Phnom Penh, believes past promotional efforts were too passive. He says promotion efforts should be strengthened in mainland China and Hong Kong, especially as Chinese tourists will soon be allowed visa-free entry to Cambodia. He said they plan to invite travel agencies, influencers, airlines, and ideally TV stations to visit Cambodia to help promote the nation. Meanwhile, Phnom Penh's new airport officially opened late last year and is 6 times larger than the old one. Designed by the same team behind Hong Kong International Airport, the project costs over $2 billion and was funded by local Chinese-Cambodian entrepreneur Peng Kiew-se. He notes that although the design was the most expensive option, it was chosen because a beautiful airport would improve perceptions of Cambodia and attract investment. Raymond Tam, who has run a garment factory in Cambodia for 20 years, is also organizing investment tours for Hong Kong businesses. He said visiting entrepreneurs can see for themselves that the environment here is safe and hopes a crackdown will eliminate fraud and create real opportunities for genuine investors. Cambodia is expected to graduate from least developed country status by 2029 and become a developing country, which will mean losing some export tax benefits. Tam believes Hong Kong businesses can find new opportunities during this period of industrial transformation. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Rehearsals for the traditional Pusick parades were held today in anticipation of the Cheung Chau Bun Festival, which is set to take place next Sunday. Let's take a look.
Dressed to the nines with an abacus in hand, this young financial secretary is preparing to participate in one of Hong Kong's most popular annual parades. While others went for a more classical wuxia look, with this girl's costume having taken reference to popular martial arts dramas in the past. The Pusick parade of the Cheung Chau Bun Festival is set to kick off in just around 1 week, drawing scores of young performers to practice their moves and try on their makeup for today's rehearsal. Besides the child actors, the spectacle also attracted crowds from all across the city. This, as an organizer of the parade, said the growing trend of Hong Kongers choosing to spend up north has put a dent in Cheung Chau's tourism sector. He added that there has been a noticeable drop in business, stressing that participants in the annual event often have to pay huge sums to ensure a decent production and the safety of the performers. Beginning in the afternoon next Sunday, the Pusick parade will start at the Pak Tai Temple playground before traversing several streets on the island, such as Pak Shih Street and Sun Hing Street.
And that's the news. Thanks for watching.